Horror history.
Have you ever seen a picture that just gives you the chills? We're venturing into a world hidden from view for most of us, asylums from the early 1900s. These places weren't exactly known for their sunshine and rainbows. This picture, taken in 1900 France, shows a patient strapped down. Back then, people could be locked away for anything from depression to, well, basically anything the doctors didn't understand. Shell shock, as we've seen this in previous part with footage aftermath of war, now called PTSD, or even learning difficulties could land you in a place like this. The worst part? What these patients went through behind closed doors is a complete mystery. We can only imagine the fear and suffering they endured. These asylums were a far cry from the mental health facilities we have today. World War II wasn't just fought on battlefields. Some of the most disturbing battles happened in secret labs. The dark world of Unit 731, a Japanese biological and chemical weapons program during World War II. These weren't your average scientists. They were monsters in lab coats, obsessed with pushing the boundaries of warfare and humanity. They used captured Chinese civilians, innocent people, as guinea pigs for horrific experiments. We're talking deliberate frostbite, vivisections on people who were wide awake, weapon testing on living prisoners, unimaginable stuff, and that's not all. There are even reports of horrific things like R.P.E. This picture, taken in 1940, shows Unit 731 conducting one of these sickening experiments. These weren't isolated incidents. This was a program fueled by a twisted desire for power. Watch this video to know about more disturbing experiments, the chilling world of unsolved mysteries, and this one's a doozy, the Dyatlov Pass Incident. Back in February 1959, a group of 9 young Soviet hikers embarked on a trek through the Ural Mountains. Think Lord of the Rings meets Siberia, beautiful but brutal. These weren't your average weekend warriors. They were experienced and prepared. But something went horribly wrong on that snowy mountain. When rescuers found their tent, it was eerily slashed open from the inside. The hikers were scattered, some even miles away, and their deaths were gruesome. Missing tongues, eyes. Not exactly a peaceful way to go. Theories? Buckle up. From secret government experiments to alien encounters, there are more theories than snowflakes on Mount Everest. This picture was taken just before their trek. Spooky, right? The good news? The Russians reopened the case in 2019. The bad news? We still don't have all the answers. So, what do you think happened? Let's crack this case in the comments. School shootings are a horrific reality in our world. We're going to talk about one that deeply impacted the nation, the Columbine High School tragedy in 1999. On April 20th of that year, students Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold committed a devastating act of violence. I already mentioned this in A Mother Who Raised a Killer's Sons, taking the lives of 12 students and 1 teacher before ending their own. In the aftermath, the entire nation reeled, struggling to understand how this could happen. Everyone searched for answers, for any clues that might have prevented this tragedy. One detail that emerged, and has become a chilling symbol of the event, is this class photo. At first glance, it seems ordinary, but upon closer look, you can see Harris and Klebold. It's a gesture that sends shivers down your spine, knowing what was to come. Northern Ireland has a complex history, marked by a period of conflict known as the Troubles. For decades, tensions ran high between those who wanted Northern Ireland to remain part of Great Britain and those who wanted it to unite with the Republic of Ireland. One of the darkest days in this conflict was the Omagh bombing in 1998. A car bomb ripped through a crowded market town, killing 29 people, including many innocent bystanders. Over 200 were injured. This heartbreaking picture captures a moment of pure normalcy right before the tragedy. This happy father and son, completely unaware of the danger just beside them. The car they're standing next to? It was the bomb. This image serves as a stark reminder of the devastating impact of violence, shattering lives in an instant. Space exploration. It's all about pushing boundaries, reaching for the stars. But today, we're going to talk about a moment in history that cast a long shadow, the Apollo 1 tragedy. Back in 1967, these 3 astronauts, Roger Chaffee, Virgil Grissom, and Ed White, were gearing up to be the first Apollo crew. They were pioneers, brave men about to embark on a historic mission. This picture was taken during a routine test. They look serious, maybe even a little worried. It turns out, they had some concerns about the spacecraft, too many flammable materials on board. They even joked about it with the program manager, Joe Shea. They gave him this photo with a funny caption, like, "We don't distrust you, Joe, but we're going over your head this time." Sadly, their joke turned into a terrible premonition. A fire erupted during a ground test, and all 3 astronauts perished. The Apollo 1 mission never made it to space, but it became a turning point for NASA. They completely redesigned the spacecraft to prioritize safety. This tragedy serves as a reminder of the risks involved in space exploration, but also the courage of those who push the boundaries of human achievement. Alright, medical school dropouts, or those who just love a good creep out, this picture, captured in 1968 by photographer Anthony Armstrong Jones, is equal parts fascinating and unsettling. Those wide eyes staring back, not exactly calming for a trainee nurse, right? The best part? There's no crazy backstory, no ghosts or hauntings. It's just a wax figure, but somehow, it manages to be super creepy. Now, Armstrong Jones wasn't some creepy dude obsessed with wax figures that we saw in part 1 video. He was actually a super successful photographer whose work resonated with tons of people. He even married a princess. So, what do you think makes this picture so creepy? Is it the wax figure itself, or the whole medical training vibe? Spill the tea in the comments. Comets are fascinating cosmic objects, but in 1997, one comet, Hale-Bopp, became linked to a disturbing event, the Heaven's Gate cult. This group, led by Marshall Applewhite, believed in escaping Earth and reaching a higher plane of existence. They saw Hale-Bopp as their ticket out of here, a spaceship in disguise. Now, Applewhite fully convinced his followers of this idea. So convinced, that 39 of them participated in a mass suicide ritual on March 26, 1997. They believed they were shedding their earthly bodies and blasting off to this higher existence. Applewhite himself joined them in this final act. The scene discovered by authorities was eerie. Many wore matching clothes and armbands, a symbol of their devotion to Applewhite's vision. The Heaven's Gate tragedy is a chilling reminder of the power of blind faith and the dangers of cult manipulation. This might look like a utopian paradise, a secluded community living off the land. But behind this facade lies one of the darkest chapters in American history, the Jonestown Massacre. Back in 1978, a charismatic leader named Jim Jones convinced hundreds of followers to move to this remote settlement in Guyana. They called it Jonestown. Jones promised a better life, but things took a terrifying turn. He began controlling every aspect of their lives, isolating them from the outside world and feeding paranoia about government persecution. On November 18, 1978, tragedy struck. Jones convinced his followers that a mass suicide was their only escape. Over 900 people, including children, perished that day. This picture, taken before the tragedy, shows Jones surrounded by his devoted followers. Little did they know, the idyllic life they were promised would end in horror. Not all summits end in victory. In 1979, a German climber named Hannelore Schmatz reached the peak of Mount Everest, the 4th woman in the world to conquer the roof of the world. But elation turned to heartbreak on her descent. As they navigated the knife-edge ridges and icy abysses of Everest, Schmatz's body began to betray her. The thin air gnawed at her lungs, and the bone-chilling cold seeped into her bones. Exhaustion turned into despair as Schmatz battled to keep moving. Despite the valiant efforts of her Sherpas, the mountain's grip tightened. Tragically, Schmatz succumbed to the unforgiving conditions, leaving behind a haunting legacy. For over a decade, her body remained seated against her backpack, her hair billowing in the mountain winds, and her eyes eerily wide open. For years after her passing, climbers who encountered her remains on the trail reported feeling an unsettling sensation as if her gaze followed them as they passed by. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out the previous 4 parts featuring creepy images with disturbing backstories, either in the description below or at the end of this video. Comment below and let me know which image or backstory gave you the creeps. If you've learned something new, please consider liking and subscribing to support my channel. Your encouragement motivates me to create more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next suspenseful video. Stay curious, chill seekers.